Welcome back. And the rivalry for today is Detroit and Colorado. Now, I'm wearing an Avs jersey. It doesn't really matter which one I'm wearing because these teams beat up on each other pretty solidly. As a Vancouver fan, I didn't really care who won. I just enjoyed some really solid hockey. Now, there are incidents that stand out. And the hate starts right about here. Game 6, 1996, Claude Lemieux checks Chris Draper from behind, face first into the boards. It was vicious. It was brutal. Broken jaw, shattered cheek, and orbital bone. He needed surgery, had his jaw wired shut. And the general feeling around the hockey world was that Claude Lemieux was probably the dirtiest player who'd ever played the game. At the time, that was the feeling. And the biggest problem with Claude Lemieux was he would fight on occasion, but he didn't really answer the bell that often. He was known for turtling, and there were people that didn't like that. And then March 26th of 1997, Darren McCarty. Now, they'd already met in the regular season a couple of times, but that last game, the Red Wings decided, all right, we've had enough. And there were some fights in that game. But leading up to this incident where McCarty decides it's time to end Claude Lemieux. He sucker punched him, nailed him while he was down on the ice because, of course, he turtled. And then kneed him in the head as well while he was along the board. I'm not kidding. McCarty tried to end. He's like, all right, well, your career's done. Now's the moment. And it was one of those divisive things where if you were a Claude Lemieux / Colorado fan, you may have seen Lemieux's shift disturbing ways as a good distraction, as something that takes the other team off their game. And if you're a Red Wings fan, you might have just wanted to see him not on the ice anymore, ever. And yeah, it was a brutal time. Now, that of course led to Patrick Roy coming out, wanting to have a word with Mr. Darren McCarty, to which Brendan Shanahan greeted him with a clothesline. Then Mike Vernon decides, well, okay, and he came out and he got into it with Adam Foote, and the brawl is on. There were 18 fighting majors in that game, 144 penalty minutes. Now, what's interesting is, we remember those fights, we remember those brawling games. The interesting thing is, when you look at the overall numbers, Detroit and Colorado actually kept their heads about them pretty darn good through most games they played against each other. Now, recent incident, December 3rd, 2018, Tyler Bertuzzi decides, hey, I can bring this thing back. I can make sure that this is a rivalry people want to see again. And he gets suspended 2 games for sucker punching Matt Calvert. So, it was nice of Bertuzzi to decide he wanted to rekindle that flame. Sadly, the only way these teams meet each other in the playoffs is in the Stanley Cup final. But if/when that ever happens again, we would all be watching. These teams meet in 1996, the first year after the Colorado Avalanche come into existence, leaving Quebec. And it's a 4-2 series win for Colorado, despite Detroit having home ice advantage. The score, 3-2 in Game 1, 30 penalty minutes in that. I tracked the penalty minutes throughout this just to show these games are not penalty-filled, fight-filled affairs, mostly. Game 2 is a 3-0 win for Colorado, 32 penalty minutes in that one. Detroit wins Game 3, 6-4, 34 penalty minutes in that one. But Colorado in Game 4 at home, they win 4-2, 34 penalty minutes in that one as well. Detroit wins Game 5 to force a Game 6 with a 5-2 victory, 30 penalty minutes in that one. And then Colorado eliminates Detroit with a 4-1 victory. There's only 31 penalty minutes in that game, but 17 of those penalty minutes go to Claude Lemieux. So Claude Lemieux gets 17 penalty minutes in that game, and that's where the hatred really boils over. Patrick Roy, 905 save percentage in that series. Chris Osgood, 859 save percentage in that series. And that's where they look to Mike Vernon the following year. So 1997 conference finals, Colorado had home ice. Doesn't matter. Detroit wins it in 6. None of their series went to 7 until much later in the rivalry. 2-1 victory early for the Colorado Avalanche, 34 penalty minutes in that one, but Detroit wins the second one 4-2. 22 penalty minutes in that one. Keep in mind, those games are after that huge brawl in March of 1997. So these teams are very smart about it. They don't go out there and start fights right out of the gate. 2-1 win in Game 3 for the Detroit Red Wings. 28 penalty minutes in that one. And then in Game 4, kabam! Yeah, 6-0 for Detroit. And at some point, it completely devolves. There are 8 fighting majors in this game. There are numerous guys getting booted out, 10-minute misconducts handed out right, left, and center. 234 penalty minutes in that game, dwarfing the 144 penalty minutes in the other game. Now, interestingly enough, after that Detroit shellacking of Colorado, Colorado goes, "Oh, we can do this too," and they won the deciding game 6-0. No, sorry. They won Game 5 to come back to 3-2 down, 6-0. Maybe I took a punch during that line there. So yeah, Game 5 is a 6-0 win for Colorado after they take that 6-0 loss. 52 penalty minutes in that one. Now we go to the deciding game. Detroit wins 3-1. Interestingly enough, in the deciding game, there's only 12 penalty minutes. So the Detroit Red Wings eliminate Colorado in a game where there's almost no penalty minutes. So there's 2 reasons for this. Either 1, the referees put the whistles away, or 2, both teams said, all right, we can't afford to take penalties tonight in this elimination game. One or the other. So Colorado fought back 6-0 and then lose 3-1. Mike Vernon had a .909 save percentage in that series. Patrick Waugh, .930. So Patrick Waugh showing that it's important to have a better goaltender, and yet Detroit comes out ahead and wins that one 4-2, and of course would go on to win the big one. So you win this series, you win the Stanley Cup. You win this series, you win the Stanley Cup. Right. 1999, this time they meet in round 2. That's after conference finals in 97 and 96. After taking a year off from one another, they meet again in round 2 now in 1999. And Detroit wins Game 1 3-2, 44 penalty minutes in that one. That's more than most of the rest of these games. They win 4-0 in Game 2, 48 penalty minutes in that one. So, with Colorado losing both games at home, they assert themselves on the road. 5-3 in Game 3, 28 penalty minutes. 6-2 in Game 4, 22 penalty minutes. 3-0 in Game 5, 36 penalty minutes. And then in Game 6, they continue to roll. They win 5-2, 16 penalty minutes. So again, in the deciding game, not a whole lot of penalties. Patrick Waugh, .938 save percentage. Ranford had a .905 save percentage. Osgood, .860. As Detroit continues to cycle through goaltenders. And like I've been saying in recent videos where I've talked about those Detroit Red Wings, yes, the Detroit Red Wings had a dominant franchise. They had a great roster on the ice. They always seemed to be looking for the goaltender until Hasek came along. They always seem to have that conversation of our goaltending just isn't quite up to snuff, and that may very well be why Chris Osgood isn't in the Hall of Fame. We've had that discussion before. I'm in favor of Osgood being in the Hall of Fame, but I can understand that being used as a detractor against him, despite all the other wins he had along the way. So 2000, they meet again in round 2, and Colorado kind of getting better. So they win for the 3rd time in 4 tries against the Detroit Red Wings. 2-0 in Game 1, 18 penalty minutes in that one. 3-1 in Game 2, 52 penalty minutes in that one. 24 penalty minutes in Game 3, which is the only game won by Detroit, who actually had home ice in this one. Game 4, 3-2 win for Colorado with 16 penalty minutes. There's only 20 penalty minutes in the deciding game, a 4-2 win for the Avalanche. Patrick Waugh, .951 save percentage. We're back to Osgood here. .906 save percentage for Chris Osgood. So we move on. 2001, they don't play each other. 2002, they meet each other yet again. Detroit in a conference final, again, against the Colorado Avalanche. That's their 3rd conference final against each other. Whoever wins that conference final matchup would go on to win the Stanley Cup. This is why, when these teams met each other in the conference finals, we all kind of knew we were watching the Stanley Cup final right then and there. The Stanley Cup final was kind of anticlimactic after these battles. This is the only one that goes to 7. Game 1, Detroit wins that one 5-3, only 14 penalty minutes. All of the hate, all of the brawl, all of the anger is sort of gone between these two teams at this stage. Game 2, Colorado wins 4-3, 34 penalty minutes in that one. Game 3, 2-1 win for Detroit, 22 penalty minutes in that one. Game 4, 3-2 win for Colorado as these teams keep exchanging wins. 20 penalty minutes in that one. Game 5, Colorado pushes Detroit to the brink with a 2-1 win, 16 penalty minutes. And then Detroit wins back-to-back games in 6 and 7. They win 2-0, 18 penalty minutes in that game. They win 7-0 in Game 7. Unlike this one where they win 6-0, this one doesn't result in a brawl. There's only 10 penalty minutes in the entire game. So, a little bit of a difference there. 234 penalty minutes to 10. But still, Detroit wins. And in both series, they end up winning the series. So, if they get big, lopsided victories, you end up winning the series. I'm just looking as well at this. There's a bit of a lopsided victory in this one, 6-2. Lopsided victories for Detroit are plentiful against the Colorado Avalanche, apparently, because we would see them again 6 years later. So Hasek, 923 save percentage, and Patrick Roy, 900 save percentage. So Hasek outduels Roy in that one with back-to-back shutouts, and Patrick Roy probably not happy with himself about that Game 7. I remember having a good laugh during that Game 7. I honestly, I did. I had a pretty good laugh during that Game 7. I mean, as a Canuck fan, any hope I had for my team winning had been gone a long time before this, so I might as well get a good chuckle about 7-0. So 2008, these teams meet again. It's the only meeting they had after the lockout wiped out season of 04-05, and it is a wipeout by Detroit. So they have home ice, and they swept the Colorado Avalanche. 4-3 in Game 1, 18 penalty minutes. 5-1 in Game 2, 34 penalty minutes. Game 3, 4-3, 18 penalty minutes. And no tension at all to Game 4, 8-2 victory for the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, 8-2, 22 penalty minutes. So overall, the Detroit Red Wings end up evening things out. They won the second meeting between these teams. They won the 5th and the 6th. 1, 3, and 4 all go to Colorado. These teams meet each other in the playoffs and win Stanley Cups. After playing against each other 3 times, 4 times including 2008, 1999, that was a Dallas win, and of course, this series is seen as a large reason why Dallas wins, because they avoided playing against Detroit. And 2000, again, Dallas doesn't have to play Detroit, because Detroit gets knocked out by the Colorado Avalanche. So, that's a whole argument for another time, but these teams have each won 3 series. They've each got 17 overall wins. I would think total goals would favor Detroit because of the amount of times they've laid a beating on them. 6-0 here, 7-0 here, and 8-2. But outside of this 6-0 win with the 234 penalty minutes, things were relatively quiet. And, you know, the hate from 96, from Lemieux's hit on Draper that carried over through 97, through the regular season and into that playoff series, by 99, it's really kind of sort of forgotten. It's still a great series. 2000 is a solid series. 2002 is a solid series. But a lot of the hate is just right in this area here. What I like about Detroit and Colorado, and it's a begrudging like from back then, is the fact that they don't get caught up in this. So you can have that 234 penalty minutes here, and then in the deciding game of the series, you have 12. You have 2 teams that really do hate each other, but when it's a really important game, they say, all right, we got to keep things clean because we don't want to be, going out there and doing something stupid that gives them the win. So I respect both teams for that. And there you go. The overall picture of the rivalry of the Colorado Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings. The only argument for having Detroit and putting them back into the Western Conference would be this, in my eyes. You could argue, well, they get to play Chicago and St. Louis again. Detroit fans would say, yeah, and then they're outside of our time zone, and we don't like that, and they'd be right. Detroit players wouldn't be happy about playing outside the time zone. But this was a great rivalry. Really was. At its best, it was the Stanley Cup final. Here, and here, I would argue, those 3 times, that's your Stanley Cup final. I know it's the conference final, but no. So unlike others I've been looking at as well, the first 2 rivalries I looked at, these teams have never met in round 1. They've always met in round 2 or round 3. Never met in the Stanley Cup finals, but it's possible now that they're in opposite conferences. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and it's a fun topic to talk about, and we'll see what rivalry I dig up for tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.